Hi, first graders. Happy Wind Down Wednesday. I'm so glad you're here with us this evening. Find someplace cozy to sit and we will get started. In class, we have been having so much fun learning about influential women because it is Women's History Month. Today, we learned about Dr. Ellen Ochoa. Dr. Ellen Ochoa is the very first Hispanic female astronaut. We gave her a huge round of applause in class, and it was especially exciting to learn about her because many students in class have a connection to her because they are Hispanic. We also learned about Helen Keller. And when we were learning about Helen Keller, it was especially interesting because we were able to have a discussion about how people communicate what they need and what they want in a lot of different ways. Students learned that Helen Keller was often angry and showed her anger through her actions when she was unable to communicate using her voice about how she was feeling. Students used their understanding and empathy to realize that Helen Keller needed a way to communicate what she wanted and what she needed in life. They were excited when they learned about another influential woman, Anne Sullivan, who was the educator who taught Helen Keller how to use her hands to communicate. In class, we have started to learn how to say the days of the week in sign language. I encourage you to share with someone at home how to say the days of the week. Here is a reminder. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It was so much fun learning about Helen Keller, and we also learned about Amelia Earhart. And many students were fascinated by how successful she was with flying a plane during a time when women were not encouraged to complete tasks like flying planes and earning a degree or getting education to complete such a special achievement. We are going to continue to read Stanley's Worldwide Adventures, the Mount Rushmore Calamity. And there is a special girl in this book, Calamity Jasper, who we are going to continue to read about this evening. Into the mine. Stanley and Arthur waited impatiently while Calamity Jasper led Gold Rush to a shady spot by a stream so he could drink and munch grass. Remember, Gold Rush is the name of her horse. speaking of animals, do you like my groundhog earrings? Groundhogs are our school mascot. So if you look close, you can see a bunch of groundhogs. Then they followed her to the mine entrance. Here we go, heading into the mine. Calamity handed each boy a flashlight. Then she switched on her headlamp and led them in. Everyone, turn your headlight on. Here we go. The mine was dark. When their eyes adjusted, the boys could make out several men, blackened with dirt, chipping away at the walls and whispering to one another. We do a great job in class using a level 1 voice, which means we whisper. Kiss your brain for using that level 1 voice. Instead of being at a level 0, you do an excellent job being at a level 1, which means that you're able to talk with people around you, but you're talking to them in a way that isn't distracting the learning of others. Don't pay them any mind, Calamity whispered. Them prospectors are a jealous bunch, every man to himself, that kind of thing. They'll hog-tie you and throw you off the mountain if they think you're trespassing into their claims. So Calamity Jasper is explaining to the boys that the people that are working in the mine want the gold to themselves. Trespassing means that you are in a place where you're not allowed. So if the miners think that you are in their mine and you're not supposed to be, they're going to throw you off the mountain. Reckon we better mosey on a little farther. So they're just going to keep walking. The boys followed Calamity deeper and deeper into the dark mine. The tink, tink, tink of the prospectors' hammers grew fainter. So the farther away they walked from the miners, right, the workers, the less they could hear the hammer that they were using. And the light grew dimmer, which means that it was becoming even more dark. I don't see any gold yet, Arthur called out to Calamity Jasper, who was far ahead now. Right, where's the gold? Stanley called out even louder. The boys were comforted by their voices in the dark mine. Where's the gold? They cried together. Don't yell, came Calamity's voice. You'll cause a... Suddenly, there was a tremendous rumbling roar. Rocks and rubble came crashing down in front of Stanley and Arthur. A cave-in! So that was why everyone was whispering. At the mine's entrance, the prospectors dropped their hammers and ran out. Every man for himself, they cried. Head for the hills. Stanley was tempted to call after them that they already were in the hills, but he was much too worried to be bothered. Where's Calamity Jasper? He asked Arthur. The boys played their flashlights over the wall of rocks and dirt in front of them. Do you think? Arthur whispered. Shh, Stanley whispered back. In the quiet, the boys could make out a muffled voice. Golden, golden, gold. Don't worry, Stanley called in quietly to the trapped cowgirl. "We'll get you out." So it's hard to figure out what exactly she's saying there, right? "Step aside," Arthur told his brother. "It's your fault she's in there." Then he called in to Calamity, quietly also. "I'll get you out. I'm very strong for my age." Arthur was strong. That was true. But it was also true that he felt a lot stronger when he was wearing his Mighty Man t-shirt, which is what he was wearing. And today he was wearing his authentic cowboy clothes instead. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. He wasn't wearing his Mighty Man t-shirt. He pushed against a big rock. He pushed and he pushed. The rock didn't budge. "Step aside," Stanley said. "It's your fault she's in there. I'll get her out with my flatness." Stanley surveyed or looked over the rubble in front of him. There was a gap between two big rocks, about an inch wide. An inch was about this long. It's making me think back to when we were measuring. It might work. He squeezed and folded himself until, yes, Stanley Lamb Chop worked himself through until he came out into a small, clear space. And there was Calamity sitting on a rock. "I'm here," he said proudly. "You can stop worrying now." Calamity looked up at him. "And why is that?" "Because I'm used to being a hero. It's what I do. Now that I'm flat, I rescued my mother's favorite ring." Remember when he did that? We read that book. "And I helped capture sneak thieves at the famous museum. So I'll get you out," he assured her. Calamity Jasper stood up and turned her head so her headlamp illuminated, lit up the small space. "Really?" she asked. "How?" Stanley looked around. He saw the problem. He could get through the gap in the rocks, but she couldn't. "I'm sorry," he said, embarrassed. "I'll come up with something." "Just go get help," Calamity muttered. Then she sat back down on the rock and turned her back to him. Stanley worked himself back through to the other side. "My flatness didn't help," he admitted to Arthur. "Well, my strength didn't help either," Arthur said. "Too bad we couldn't combine the two." He jumped up. "We've been studying machines at school. Do you know how a lever works?" Stanley understood Arthur's clever idea at once. The boys rolled a small rock beside the larger one, and Stanley laid himself over it. He worked his feet under the large rock and made himself stiff as a board. "Use your strength to press down on my shoulders," he directed his brother. So they're thinking interdependently, one of our habits of mind. Arthur did. With a deep creak, the boulder rolled aside. Calamity Jasper crawled through the gap. She narrowed her eyes like this and scowled at the two boys as she stormed past them to the main entrance. She is not happy with them. The boys followed, and after the three children rubbed their eyes in the bright afternoon sunshine, they stared in disbelief. Gold Rush, the horse, was gone. Oh my, so many problems. The first problem was that the two boys were so loud that all of the pebbles and boulders tumbled down, and Calamity got trapped. And then once she finally got out with the boys, they discovered Gold Rush, the horse, was gone. Where could the horse be? Did you have a prediction? You could say, "I predict that Gold Rush the horse was or is Let's see if your prediction is correct next week. Have a great night. Thank you for joining me. Bye.